State which table could be a function or could not be a function. Could, and D is not or could not be a function. Why couldn't D be a function? Look at the x values. If you have two x values that are the same, if any x's repeat, it is not a function, or it could not be a function. Ray?
Unless those two x's have the same y value.
Then it would be the same point, right?
Yeah, so it would still be a function.
I believe you are correct. But that's in one of those gray areas, Ray, that I'm not sure about at this point. Makes me wonder why you would have a separate point that's the same.
I don't know, maybe you're graphing the data from a math problem.
Okie dokie. I'm just going to keep going. All right. What questions do you have over Unit 2? We haven't gone over all these answers yet, but I'm curious. Did you have issues on 22, 23, 24, or 25? Anybody have issues with those problems? Things you want me to explain? Ashley?
Can you go over 22?
22. Let's do it. Malik and Nora are playing a video game. Malik starts with M points and Nora starts with N points. Oh, that's pretty simple. Then Malik gets 150 more points while Nora loses 50 points. Finally, Nora gets a bonus and her score is doubled. Now Nora has 50 more points than Malik. Write an equation expressing the fact that Nora now has 50 more points than Malik. So what I did was to say, well, write an equation expressing the fact that Nora now has 50 points more than Malik. So if they're the same, Nora and Malik, they'd be equal to each other if they were the same. Nora now has 50 more points than Malik. If I wanted them to be equal, I would have to add 50 points more to Malik's score so that Nora's score and his would be the same. So this is what I wrote. This is the only part of the whole thing that I actually need to write the formula down for. Malik started with M, Nora started with N. Malik gets 150 more points. I don't use that. Nora loses 50 points. I don't use that. Nora gets a bonus and her score is double. I don't even use that. Nora now has 50 more points than Malik. Write an equation expressing the fact that Nora now has 50 more points than Malik. We don't even need to use any of these previous stuff that's there to confuse us. As a person who writes a math test, we call those distractors. Those are trying to distract you away from the correct answer. It's there in case you, what do I do with this? What do I do with that? Some of you are going to try to do stuff with that when you don't really need to. Okay? We're not trying to trick you per se, but we're trying to separate the people who know what they're doing from the people who don't. So keep that in mind as you go through it. I put a second possibility. You could also say Malik is equal to Nora minus 50, and they would be the same that way as well. Okay? I don't remember seeing one like 22 on your final, but I do remember seeing stuff like 21 and definitely 23 through 24 if you know your explicit formulas and your recursive formulas. Just so you are aware, you see how I have the explicit and recursive formulas up on the board for you? You will get those on the board for your final. I do not expect you to memorize those two formulas, the explicit and the recursive. All you have to remember, what is A of 1? That's your first term's value. What is D? That's your common difference. What's the first number? When I look at B, the first number is 7. That's what A of 1 is. What's it going up by? It's subtracting 4 and subtracting 4 and subtracting 4. That's your common difference. These are the only two things you replace. And the same is with recursive. You only replace what's underlined in those formulas.
Can I pick up a ruler?
They're right there. Brennan, would you get him a ruler, please? I think that the wording on 25 is a little bit hard. The height of the water level in a tank is 200 inches on day 1. The water level increases at a constant rate of 3 inches every day. So if I were to write out the numbers, this is what it looks like. Day 1 is 200 inches, right? What's it on day 2? 203. And then what is it on day 3? So it's an easy pattern when you start, and all they're really asking you to do is to write a recursive formula. So if you know what A1 is, and you know what the D is, you should be able to write the recursive formula. They ask you to do this in terms of H and T, though. I have H of 1 is equal to 200. On the first day, it has a value of 200. Then, H of T will equal H of T minus 1 plus 3. This is my D. This is my A of 1. And I just wrote it in terms of H and T. I know that's a little hard to read, but this says H of 1 is 200. H of T is equal to H of T minus 1 plus 3. If you wrote A of 1 and A of n equals A of n minus 1 plus 3, I'd accept that. But because it's here in terms of H and T, you advanced students who are in here, that's how you should write it. And there was only one other problem here, which was the very, 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 very top problem, which is 26. And it's D. Carla borrowed $18,000 to start her business. Her business earnings averaged $750 per week for the first 10 weeks. Carla's balance, Y, in any week X, is equal to her total earnings minus the amount she borrowed. Select as few quadrants as possible that will allow you to create a graph of Carla's balance over the first 20 weeks. And I wrote D, and I'll tell you why. Because if she borrows $18,000, that means she owes that much money, right? So that's a negative number. So I started my graph. This is, I know this is kind of hard. This is negative $18,000. And then the first week goes by and she makes $750. Now, ideally, she's going to save a lot of that money to pay off the $18,000. Got to pay the debts. And every week that goes by, how much she owes will be a little bit less and a little bit less and a little bit less and a little bit less. And then I thought, what would happen after 20 weeks? 20 weeks times 750 is $15,000. So $15,000, she owes 18. Is she still going to be in the negative numbers? And if so, then that means that she'll still be in quadrant 4. She'll still be in the negative. She needs a few more weeks to get out of the negative by paying off all that debt. Okay.